the scene that I've always been told was the scene of the series was the Red Wedding. And again, I'm not super fanboy. I definitely have seen that episode. But you know, when you're looking at this, especially from someone like me that hadn't even watched anything prior to that, when that had come out, it really is just one of those scenes that gets stuck in your head. It's absolutely beautiful. The candlelight, the whole scene, the way that the entire thing is balanced between like how it begins and how it ends. It's just such a great scene, and I'd love to get your perspective on it. I'm sure you talked about it a million times, but not with us. And I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, especially now so many years away from it.
Yeah, I'm happy to. Yeah, well, you know, that was the first season that I worked on the show, and going in, my first episode was going to be the one that Dave Benioff and Dan Weiss had been most looking forward to, apparently, because they knew it was just going to absolutely rock the worlds in a really bad way of all the fans. And so the pressure on David Nutter,
which, by the way, HBO loves to do it. They love killing everybody. they love to build up these characters so they become your friends, and then they kill them all.
Exactly right.
You can't get too attached with any HBO show.
No, it's best not to, definitely. But you know, that's also what compels us to tune in religiously every week as well. But yeah, going into the Red Wedding, the pressure to really nail it was enormous, and I didn't really appreciate it until we were, you know, over there and into prep. And the good thing about what happened with the schedule there was it was the last scene that we filmed in Belfast prior to leaving to go to Morocco to do the finale of the season, the Misa episode. And so we had quite a bit of time to chew on it. I had access to the set well in advance. We had all the cast come in, and we did a rough blocking and a rough rehearsal. So also well in advance. So I had lots of time to think about it. And the big thing for me was how to I wanted to visually, subtly lead the viewers astray. I really, really wanted them to think that they were going to get the happy ending, because, you know, if everything went well for Rob and Walder Frey forgave him and things went according to plan, he was in really good shape to carry on and win all his battles. And everybody, all the viewers, really, really wanted that to happen. They loved that character. They loved the Kat Stark character. So I had this idea that it you know, Game of Thrones at the best of times is a very moody show, and any set, even a day interior, there's lots of dark shadows where who knows what could be lurking. And I wanted that banquet scene to feel like, certainly when we first landed in it, that everybody was going to get the happy ending they wanted. So there are three main components to what led up to that scene. There's the one when Rob first arrives at the castle and cap in hand and has to apologize to Walder Frey and his daughters for not marrying one of them like he promised to. And I wanted the viewer to feel like that things could kind of go either way at this point and not be too sure about what the outcome of this episode and this storyline was going to be. So I lit it the same sort of grim, dismal way that the last time you saw that set was, which was on season 2. And then the subsequent scene during the actual wedding ceremony, there was an excuse to still have a little bit of evening light outside the windows and introduce some warmer candlelight and some softer light. And we warmed it up, and there were a few smiles shared. And I think, you know, maybe the viewer is going to come out of this feeling like maybe things will be okay. And I really wanted them to think everything was going to be great and it was going to be an awesome, happy ending for once on Game of Thrones by having, when we find ourselves in the banquet hall and the wedding banquet itself.
So throughout the scene, it starts relatively bright. I mean, it's certainly candlelight, but the place is completely filled. But tell me about how you used the scene and the action in the scene to actually change how much light was in it without really giving too much away.
Yeah, I wanted the room to feel like, you know, as close to a happy Disney medieval drama as you could get with, you know, certainly by Game of Thrones standards. But I didn't want it to be so bright when all the shit happens and when the killing starts. So I convinced the director and the producers to overload it with candles initially. And in fact, that scene was about 80% lit with real candle and firelight, because I wanted it to feel as authentic as possible. We had very little movie lights in there, other than maybe just a little something to help clean up a face on a close-up on the ladies.
Wow.
And what I got them to agree to having all the extras pick up as many of those candlesticks and torches as they could carry and march off with this happy parade down the hall to take the bride and groom to their bedding chamber. And in that way, organically remove the light and the happy mood out of the room, so that the viewer wouldn't really be conscious that they were, that the mood and the tone were shifting arbitrarily.
Yeah.
And only once they were all out did we end up in this place where bad stuff could and did happen. And I was really gratified with it, because, the audience went down all the harder, I think, because there were no visual cues that anything bad was going to happen.
And when you do scenes like this in season 3, knowing there's going to be many more seasons to go, you start almost giving away. It must get harder and harder to hide that something bad is going to happen. I think you almost lead your audience into this idea that nothing good will ever happen and don't ever expect it. Does it become more difficult as scenes go on to keep that a secret as you're shooting?
I think that after the Red Wedding, the Red Wedding kicked the fans in the nuts so hard. I don't think there's anything we could do in future that would make them drop their guard again. So I haven't. Certainly in my own case, I haven't sort of had an opportunity to build any kind of visual miscues into it the way that we did in that instance.